Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at Noon, prosecutors seek the death penalty for the captain of the Sewol-ho ferry for abandoning ship, leaving behind hundreds of passengers. A verdict is expected on November 11th. The government employee union protests against ruling party plans to delay pension payouts for public servants by 5 years until they turn 65. Plus, Korea's household and public sector debt exceeds the point where the servicing burden will begin to slow consumption and investment considerably. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Tuesday, October 28th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Good to have you with us. I'm Scott Thompson, filling in for Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, public servants here in Korea are up in arms over a proposed revision to their pension system.
Now, the ruling Saenuri Party called for changes to the Public Servant Pension Act on Monday, which includes a revision to the recipient age from the current 60 up to 65 by the year 2031. The government says the changes are not only needed, they are inevitable due to a pension deficit that is on a steady rise because of Korea's aging population. Around 1 million public servants are expected to go on strike on November 1st in opposition to the plans. And President Park Geun-hye has called her cabinet to complete the reform of the pension system for public servants by the end of this year. At a cabinet meeting this morning, the president expressed concerns about the amount of debt that is piling up and how that could burden future generations. While acknowledging the sacrifices that public employees would have to shoulder in the process, President Park also said the longer the wait, the greater the burden for everyone. This is the first time the president has called for reforms of the public servants pension program to be carried out by the year's end. She's expected to address the issue once again during her policy speech at the National Assembly on Wednesday. Public and private debt is piling up within the Korean economy. The total amount has gotten so high, in fact, that it now threatens to take a bite out of consumption and investment. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korean households, business entities, and the nation are deep in debt to the point where it's starting to have an effect on consumption and investment. After analyzing data compiled by the Finance Ministry, the Bank of Korea, and the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Lee Hyung-gu says individual debt reached nearly $1.2 trillion last year. That's more than 85% of the country's nominal GDP and surpasses the World Economic Forum's threshold of 75%. Liability by Korean companies amounted to more than $1.7 trillion last year, exceeding Korea's nominal GDP by nearly 27%. Public debt, including the liability of public agencies, civil servants, and military pensions, comes to $1.6 trillion, which surpasses nominal GDP by nearly 15%. The country's high level of debt is raising concerns that it will affect domestic consumption. Korea's consumer sentiment dropped in October to levels seen in May following April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. An official from the Bank of Korea attributes the decline to the pessimistic outlooks for the Korean economy, which include a lowering of the country's growth projections, falling share prices, and economic risks stemming from the Eurozone. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Today is so-called Savings Day in Korea, but the amount of money being saved here by households is among the lowest in the OECD. The central bank said Tuesday Korea's household savings rate is at 4.5%, up 1.1 percentage points from the year before. Although it did go up from a year earlier, the rate has been sliding since 2001, only surpassing the 5% mark in 2 years, 2004 and 2005. During the 1988 Olympics in Seoul, the figure was at nearly 25%, and in the 1990s, it was at an average of 16%. Samsung Group's heir apparent is seeking to purchase shares of the group's key affiliates in a move that would strengthen his grasp on power. Financial supervisory authorities say that Samsung had asked for a review of relevant legal issues for Lee Jae-yong, the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics, buying stakes of Samsung Life Insurance and Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance. The move needs to be approved by the nation's financial regulator. The junior Lee, the only son of Chairman Lee Gun-hee, wants to buy a small stake in each of the two companies, which would later make it easier for him to take over his father's stakes. Samsung has been preparing succession plans from the ailing chairman to the next generation. And Korea is currently one of the strongest competitors in the global shipbuilding and display industries, but a new report shows China is not very far behind. Park Ji-won reports on the forecast for key Korean industries 4 years in the future.
Will Korea maintain its global competitiveness in its strongest industries down the road? The country currently holds the top position in the global shipbuilding, communication device, and display sectors. Automobiles and semiconductors are also key for Korea. But a new study predicts that China will overtake most of these industries in just 4 years. The Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade says that although Korea currently faces the toughest competition from Japan, the US, and European countries, China will be Korea's biggest competitor in 9 key industries by 2018. After that, only Korea's automobile sector, which is now the world's 5th largest, will maintain its global competitiveness. Korea's general machinery and semiconductor sectors will also see fierce competition from China in the coming 4 years. The forecast is also gloomy for Korea's shipbuilding, communication device, and display sectors, which are currently number 1 in the world. The institute adds China will be especially strong in IT sectors like smartphones and LCDs, which are Korea's main exports at present. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Korean prosecutors say the captain of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry should pay with his life for abandoning ship, while hundreds remained on board in peril. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports on the latest developments in the trial of the captain and his crew.
The prosecution has spoken. It is seeking the strongest punishment possible in Korean law for Sewol ferry captain Lee Jun-suk, the death penalty. They have also demanded life in prison for 3 key crew members and 15 to 30 years in prison for 11 others. More than 6 months have passed since the tragic Sewol ferry accident left more than 300 passengers dead or missing. And after deliberating through 29 trial sessions and pouring over 20,000 pages of evidence, prosecutors have made their penalty request for 15 crew members for charges of negligence of duty and violation of maritime law, which demands they should have been the last to leave the ship. The crew was accused of fleeing the ship without evacuating hundreds of passengers left on board, but repeatedly instructing them to stay put in their cabins. After prosecutors indicted 4 senior crew members, including Captain Lee Jun-suk in May, on charges of murder by willful negligence, the public's attention has been focused on whether they would hand it the death penalty. Prior to Monday's session, Captain Lee was said to have wished for punishment, admitting to all the charges against him, with the exception of murder. Some families of the victims who were in the gallery for Monday's session had earlier pleaded for the defendants to be charged with the maximum penalty possible. Sentences are expected to be issued in the 3rd week of next month. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
A Japanese specialist has offered up his impressions of North Korea following a recent trip there. He said Pyongyang is now focusing more on its economic development and less on its political and ideological pursuits of the past. Son Jung-in reports.
North Korea seems very dedicated to developing its economy and infrastructure, and although it's still in the early stages, it appears confident in its achievements. That's according to Yunya Nishiro, an associate professor at Keio University in Japan, who recently visited North Korea with 10 other Japanese scholars. Nishino, a specialist on Korea and Korea-Japan relations, visited Pyongyang and the port city of Wonsan in mid-October and met with Song-il-ho, North Korea's ambassador for negotiations on normalizing diplomatic relations with Japan. Speaking to Yonhap News Agency on Monday, Nishino quoted Song as saying that Pyongyang is doing well despite Japan's 10-year-long sanctions. He said the U.S.'s strict policy against the North is causing it some hardship, but that it is managing the situation well. The professor also pointed out something he noticed during the talks. He said that North Korean officials are focused more on the economy and improving the people's livelihoods than politics and ideology as in the past. He added that amid somewhat strained relations with China, the North may pursue ways to promote global diversification with other countries like Japan, Russia, and Europe. 손정인, Arirang News.
A forum that revolves around one of President Park Geun-hye's signature initiatives kicked off this Tuesday here in Korea. The Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Forum will cover a range of issues from nuclear safety and energy security to conservation efforts and disaster preparedness. Officials from all members of the six-party talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea are attending the three-day meeting, save for one. That exception is North Korea itself, which had been invited to participate, but Pyongyang has been critical of the forum, calling it a plot against the communist regime. We're seeing a steady rise in Korean construction projects overseas, especially in Southeast Asian markets. Nowhere is that more apparent than in Malaysia. Our Kwon-soa reports on Korea's successes there.
This 58-floor, 274-meter-high skyscraper will be Malaysia's third highest building upon completion next year. IB Tower is situated in the capital Kuala Lumpur, led by Eoh Engineering and Construction.
Different from other buildings, we used a cutting-edge method of exposing all the columns and pillars on the outside of the building. We expect this to become a new landmark.
In Malaysia, the Korean wave trend appears to have extended into the construction field too, as major Korean construction companies have participated in or been the sole builders of some of the highest skyscrapers in the country. In fact, Korea's construction volume accounts for around 20% of Malaysia's construction market. And overseas construction projects in general have been on a steady rise, with this year's volume of orders estimated to hit $70 billion.
I know very well Korean company make high-rise building in Malaysia and very impressed to bring the new technology, new quality and new design in Malaysia. I'm very impressed.
According to Eoh Construction, no matter how difficult a project is, Korea's companies have a reputation of meeting their deadlines. But that alone may not be enough to emerge as the leader in the Malaysian market, as China is rising as a competitor.
Beijing is supporting Chinese construction firms greatly, while Korean companies have to survive independently to seize the market.
Industry watchers say Korea needs to focus on price competitiveness and technical skills to be successful in the long term. Kwon-soa, Arirang News.
Let's get a check now on the global headlines we're following this hour with our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Center.
Eunice, let's start with Ebola. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued a new set of guidelines for containing the spread of Ebola within its borders. Give us the details.
Well, Jin-joo, the new set of guidelines come as some states' mandatory 21-day quarantine on all healthcare workers returning from West Africa has been coming under heavy criticism as being an overreaction. CDC Director Dr. Thomas Frieden appeared to back this view by saying that they should be monitored for Ebola symptoms, but not necessarily isolated in a hospital. That's what had happened to American nurse Casey Hickox, who was released from a New Jersey hospital several hours ago. She was whisked there after returning from Sierra Leone last Friday via Newark Liberty International Airport and kept even after testing negative to Ebola on Saturday. Hickok said her basic human rights had been violated and that she was made to feel like a criminal. Her lawyer said they would be filing a federal lawsuit. This as a 5-year-old toddler who had recently traveled from Guinea was tested for an Ebola infection in New York. Preliminary blood test, though, has cleared him of that disease. Hong Kong police are poised and ready to arrest protesters who ignore the injunctions ordering a clearance to parts of the financial hub's thoroughfares in Admiralty and Mong Kok. That's what barrister Jin Pao, on behalf of the government, told Hong Kong's High Court as it considered whether to extend the interim injunctions granted last week to taxi drivers, minibus owners, and an owner of a skyscraper. While saying that it was not the intention of the Secretary for Justice to enter into the arena, the barrister said police would not hesitate to maintain order when demonstrators assemble unlawfully and cause serious traffic congestion. The Islamic State group has released a new video featuring British hostage John Cantley, and unlike his previous appearance, he takes a very different role. The man, identifying himself as the British journalist taken hostage nearly 2 years ago, sheds his orange jumpsuit and portrays himself as a foreign correspondent on a story. Cantley says he's in the border city of Kobani, and unlike Western media reports, he says the fight for the embattled city was coming to an end, with the terror group already conquering most of it. The clip was distributed online via various social media platforms. And devastating news for football fans in South Africa. The country's star football captain Senzo Meyiwa, is dead after being shot in a burglary attempt. South African police said the 27-year-old was walking toward the door of his girlfriend's house near Johannesburg Sunday evening when 2 men broke in, demanding mobile phones and valuables. He collapsed with a single round to his chest. Authorities are still seeking the killers. The Orlando Pirate goalkeeper is being mourned as a humble hero who rose from a tough background and was at the prime of his career. South Africa is one of the world's most violent countries, recording more than 17,000 murders just last year.
Thank you, Eunice, for that update. And back here in Korea, an exhibition showcasing the latest healthcare technologies opened yesterday at the venue of the 3-week International Telecommunication Union Conference in the southern port city of Busan. Now, the key focus of the event is to promote smart features in medical devices and equipment that can be used at hospitals and at home. Our Shin Se-min tells us what caught the attention of traders and industry officials at the Health IT show.
Forget the hard, lumpy beds you find in most hospitals. Smart beds like these provide patients with a more comfortable experience.
With this bed, patients can monitor and adjust temperatures and level of humidity in their rooms. It also measures every move of a patient thanks to a non-contact sensors in the bed, giving doctors and nurses valuable information, especially during emergencies.
The smart devices in the healthcare system don't just end there. It goes way beyond. Smart technology is also enabling patients to keep track of their own blood pressure and diabetes at home.
And we, as doctors in hospitals, we need to recognize that patients are smart and they have the ability to look at information, learn about themselves. We need to encourage that. We need to help them learn about their health so they can stay healthy and so they can control their chronic conditions and stay out of the hospitals. Once they're sick, sure, we can do a lot of great technology things in the hospitals. But again, we need to move things to the left. We need to keep people out of the hospitals.
Calling Korea a hotbed of technology, Dr. Sun said the country should take advantage of new technologies to make the healthcare system more efficient.
You know, there are too many patients that need to be seen, and there are not enough doctors. Doctors need to not be so insecure. I should get to the point where I'm taking care of patients for more than 5 minutes, maybe for 15 or 20 or even 30 minutes. we're not helping patients effectively by taking care of them 5 minutes at a time.
Looking forward to the day he can spend more time examining his patients, Dr. Sun said he hopes healthcare systems evolve to provide higher quality treatment over the coming years. 신세민, Arirang News, Busan.
And this next report demonstrates how Korea's healthcare industry is seeking to incorporate technology into its medical services. Our Kim Min-ji takes us to a local hospital that's demonstrating how Google Glass can be used in the emergency room.
This patient has just been hit by a car and is bleeding severely from his head. An ambulance worker puts on a smart, wearable device and starts recording what he sees. And this can be seen from the hospital emergency room.
혈압이 낮으면 수액을 먼저 다는 게 어떨까 싶은데. 예, 혈관 확보하겠습니다. 허락해 주십시오. 네, 알겠습니다. 허가하겠습니다. IV 수액을 지금 투여하십시오. 예, 알겠습니다.
In the 15 minutes it takes to get to the hospital, the paramedic follows the directions of the doctor while hospital staff prepare the necessary medical equipment for the patient. It's a scene that could be from a movie but is part of a smart emergency medical service demonstration by Myeongji Hospital in Goyang, the first of its kind in Korea. Using state-of-the-art technology, in this case the Google Glass, which enables real-time video communication, the service aims to provide the best possible response in the shortest amount of time for patients that could be in critical condition.
Google Glass allows doctors to see the exact condition of the patient and therefore allows for clearer and more effective treatments. The paramedic is also less burdened as they have both hands free to use when attending to the patient.
In this situation, Google Glass enables doctors to not only check medical records of patients, but also lets them view X-rays and CT and MRI scans just by scanning a QR code that's loaded with the patient's details. Officials at Myeongji Hospital hope to later adopt the technology in all areas of the hospital, from wards and outpatient clinics to operating rooms. However, there are some obstacles they will have to clear beforehand. Not only will the system be costly to adopt, Google Glass first needs to be authorized for medical use in Korea. Security issues are another concern as the device can currently only be connected by Wi-Fi, and not all of the data exchanged may be encrypted. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
A special exhibition displaying the artistic works of Nobel Prize winners is underway here in Korea. It aims, of course, to promote science and creativity, but also to show the lighter side of some of the world's most innovative thinkers. Paul Yi reports.
A football can endure the powerful strike of a kicker because of its strong and solid structure. Professor Harold Kroto of Florida State University won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1996 for the discovery of fullerene, a carbon molecule that resembles the shape of a football. This is a quasi-crystal created by melting aluminum and manganese together and cooling it rapidly. It is a hard metal that does not conduct electricity and is used to make golf clubs or razor blades. Dan Sheckman, who won the 2011 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for this discovery, drew a picture representing the crystal's unique pattern structure.
Mother Nature has many secrets, and she's hiding them like Easter eggs. And we scientists look for the Easter eggs. And whenever we find something, we bring it, and Mother Nature is smiling at us.
These Nobel laureates are among 50 prize winners who have been asked to draw a picture of their ideas as part of the Sketch of Science exhibition, which began in 2012.
Well, we do hope that bringing out that science could be fun, that science is not only hard labor in the laboratory, but it could also be a playful way of describing an idea.
The art pieces are being displayed at the Kwacha National Science Museum through late November to give exhibit goers a peek into the humor and creativity of those Nobel Prize-winning minds. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The weather has turned mild after a very cold morning. Temperatures are on the rise and should be hovering in the upper teens to low 20s this afternoon. And we'll have a full autumn sun shining down on us throughout the day. So today is going to be bright, chilly and dry. In fact, it's been quite dry lately, and a dry weather advisory has been issued for some parts of the eastern coastal regions. But now, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the capital will see a high of 17, while Daegu and Busan will climb up to 20, and Gwangju climbs to 21 this afternoon. Now, for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will get up to 19 and 18 respectively, while Dokdo will see a high of 14. Well, it seems like this beautiful late autumn will continue for the next couple of days. Then we have showers starting this Friday, and it's going to be a nationwide rain. That's all I have for you at this hour or for today, and let's send it back to Scott and Jin-joo in the studio.
And those are the stories we are following at this hour.
Scott and I'll be back at the same time on Wednesday. Thank you for watching.